Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 303 of the podcast. Unless you're joining me live on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Of course, if you want to catch the show live, make sure you subscribe on one or all of those platforms. Turn on your notifications, and they'll do all the work of letting you know when the show goes live. So you don't have to put it on your calendar or anything. It's not like I schedule these things anyway. I just kind of turn the computer on whenever I have an hour to spare on a Sunday, which has been less and less frequent these days. In any case, today's Sunday, February 19th, for those of you keeping track. President's Day tomorrow. Hopefully a lot of you have the day off of work. Go enjoy some nice President's sales. Get yourself a new washing machine or something. A good time to buy appliances, I think. I don't know. That's what I heard. I read it somewhere, maybe. Yeah, so hopefully everybody is going to enjoy a nice day off, nice long weekend. Hopefully you're somewhere where the weather's warming up. Maybe get the barbecues going, stuff like that. No alcohol for me today, folks. Sorry to disappoint. Sorry to be off brand. If you listen to the show the last few weeks, you know I was dealing with a spell of bronchitis last month. And as a result of that, I wound up with like this weird kind of pressure buildup behind my eardrums, like kind of like an inner ear infection. It's just basically pressure, a little bit of fluid. I've been essentially deaf in my right ear for the past 2 weeks or so. So I finally acted like an adult and went to urgent care, and they put me on a steroid to bring the inflammation down. And it's working a little bit, I think, but I don't know. I had this eustachian tube dysfunction where I guess I have narrow tubes, the tubes in between my eardrum and my brain. So not the best thing to have when you live with a woman, because you know you don't hear things a lot. Or I guess perspective is relevant, right? But especially these past few weeks, I've been missing a lot of stuff, and I've been mishearing a lot of things, which is not advantageous for a relationship. So that's what I've been dealing with. So my little prescription steroid, so I don't want to mix that with alcohol. So I'm here with a chocolate protein shake that I whipped up right before jumping on the air here. Doesn't have the same effect as booze, but I guess it's healthier, depending which doctors you listen to. I'm immediately regretting this decision because it's kind of like sticks to my throat a little bit. So I don't know if it was the best choice right before the podcast. Reminds me of Anchorman after he loses his job and he's walking around drinking the milk and he's like, milk was a bad choice. But here we are, folks. We'll get through it together. So cheers. As I drink my giant mason jar of protein shake. It is tasty, though. Chocolate, bone broth, protein powder, little peanut butter powder, ice, and milk. Hits the spot. It's a pretty warm day. Took the fam this morning, rode our bikes down to Main Street, got some breakfast, and then went to a little farmer's market that we have here in town. It was fun. It's cool because my daughter's at the age now where she can ride her bike along with us. So we rode downtown and had a nice little morning. Last night, I took my daughter to a daddy-daughter Valentine's dance, which, took place a few days after Valentine's Day. Hope everybody had a nice Valentine's Day, by the way. So it was cool. We went out to dinner on Main Street, and then at the local rec center, they put on a nice little dance. You know, we were busting some moves out there. We didn't win the dance competition or the best dressed superlative, but now we know that those are things. So we're gonna be a little more prepared next year. But my daughter had a really nice time, which is really what it's all about. You know, we got dressed up and you know, she gets the proper princess treatment. Trying to set the bar real high for those future suitors and callers. Which at the rate she's growing up, I feel like we're not too far removed from those days. So this is the time where I have to do my part to set the bar as high as possible, so none of them can ever reach it. You know, it's like my preemptive strategy to keep the boys away from my daughter. But it was cute. We had a dance and, you know, ate a bunch of sweets, and then we came home, watched a movie. It was a good night, good weekend. And then after she went to bed, I don't know if you heard, there were some UFC fights on last night. This card, a lot less talked about than the previous card. Obviously, last one being a pay-per-view. The cards that follow the pay-per-view seem to be like, I don't want to say throwaway cards, but just the ones that were the ones that are just talked about less. Like they just have a little less hype behind them. It's like, all right, we need a little bit of a breather after that pay-per-view. That's kind of what this card was. Jessica Andrade stepping up on short notice. Mark Fellows asking if I'm on a health kick. I don't know if you caught the beginning of the show, Mark, but I'm on some prescription stuff I can't mix with alcohol, so protein shake it is. I'll have to be healthy for a week. Jessica Andrade, credit to her, stepping up on short notice here against Erin Blanchfield. I'll be honest with you. My initial, it would be easy to say like, oh, I knew Erin Blanchfield was going to do this. But I'll be honest with you guys. I thought it was too much too soon. You know, even though it was a Jessica Andrade on short notice who had just fought 3 weeks ago, I would have thought it was too much. You know, Erin Blanchfield has shown some spectacular grappling in the UFC, but she gets hit quite a bit, or at least she did in her previous fights. So I thought on paper this was a bad matchup for her, to be honest. You know, she's looked fantastic in her last few fights, but let's be realistic. The level of competition she was facing was nowhere near that of a Jessica Andrade, who's pound for pound one of the best females ever. I would put her top 5. I think that's fair. Anyone disagree with that? I mean, who are your top 5 pound for pound females of all time? Obviously, we have Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko. A lot of people probably have Ronda Rousey in there. After that, you gotta start looking at Jessica Andrade at some point. At the minimum, she's top 10 all time. And you just look at the body of work. But I'd say top 5. I'd have her like right ahead of Miesha Tate, maybe. So Blanchfield, who, like I said, she's looked great in her last few fights, but only 23 years old. You know, a little raw with the striking in fights past. But I gotta say, she looked like an evolved version of Erin Blanchfield last night. She was countering Jessica Andrade. Andrade was going in there with her chin straight up. She looked very flat, and not to take anything away from Erin Blanchfield, but it did not play into Jessica's favor to be fighting just 3 weeks after going 3 hard rounds with Lauren Murphy. Granted, she didn't take a lot of damage, but she threw like 4,000 strikes in that fight and landed 6,000, I think. You know, it might not seem this way, but even being dominant throughout a 15-minute fight, it wears on you. It takes a lot out of your body, especially because she went through an entire training camp for that fight. She tried to peak her body at a certain time. She went through a weight cut. Granted, this is up at 125 pounds, so she's not cutting as much as she was at straw weight. But she put her body through all of that and then started taking a little bit of recovery time. And I don't know, a week later, signed a contract to fight Erin Blanchfield. And her plan was to do this, make a statement against Erin Blanchfield, and then call out Weili Zhang again. I don't know if that would have worked. I don't know if she needed to do that. Yeah, I mean, hindsight's 2020, right? So the fight went the way it went. She gets submitted by someone in Erin Blanchfield, who I don't know where she's ranked. Let me take a look at that real quick while I'm talking about this. Let's see, UFC women's flyweight rankings. But like I said, Erin Blanchfield, Erin Blanchfield looked great last night. Okay, here we go. She was ranked number 9 in the division, and Jessica Andrade ranked number 2. Okay. Obviously, Erin Blanchfield is going to jump up a lot. I don't know how much. So she's probably going to skip over Taila Santos, who she was supposed to fight this weekend, I believe. And then who's ahead of her? Just Caitlin Chukagian, who's her teammate, I believe, or they at least train together because they're both Renzo Gracie brown belts, I believe. And then there's Manon Fiorot. And they're the only ones ahead of her. She called out Valentina Shevchenko, and you know, logic would say too much too soon, but you could say the same thing before she fought Jessica Andrade. It was going to be too much too soon, and she proved us wrong on that, or she proved me wrong anyway, because I'm being honest about how I felt about this fight. Yeah, called out the champ. What do you guys think? You want to throw her in there with her? I'm not really interested in anyone else fighting Valentina Shevchenko from looking at these rankings here. Alexa Grasso, I believe, has a fight coming up on the books already. Let's see. Jennifer Maia should not be ranked against Erin Blanchfield after this weekend. Lauren Murphy, I'm sure, is going to drop below her as well. You're probably looking at, I guess Erin Blanchfield would take over Jessica Andrade's ranking at number 2. Unless they put her below Manon Fiorot. If you don't put her in there with Shevchenko, then Manon Fiorot would be a good fight. Their record is identical. Manon has a win over Erin's teammate, Caitlin Chukagian. Let's see. Mark says he gives Blanchfield a better chance than Grasso, so go for it. All right. Or maybe we do Erin Blanchfield versus Alexa Grasso. You know, I don't know what Valentina's deal is. I don't know if she's waiting around, if she's waiting for an opponent or what. But let's talk about the finish by Erin Blanchfield. So she was not able to get a takedown in the first round. It seemed like it was going to be too difficult for her. And, you know, this is kind of what we were talking about with Makhachev and Volkanovski. it's harder to take down a shorter, stockier person. It just is. Size is not an advantage when it comes to wrestling. Obviously, Erin Blanchfield has a few inches on Jessica Andrade. Andrade is like a tiny, like stocky little pit bull. You know, that it's not an easy person to get below their center of gravity to lift them up. So she got in on a body lock, had a nice little inside trip, went right to the back, and went submission before position. You know, she started trying to get her hooks in. She got one and then missed on the other one. And instead of trying to get it, she just snaked her arm right under the chin, locked up the choke, and then put the hook in. And that rear naked choke was textbook perfect. You know, even with the MMA gloves. I'm not a fan, personally, I'm not a fan of the traditional rear naked choke grip. I prefer a modified rear naked choke grip with the gloves, just because it's hard to get the hand behind the head with that 4 ounces of padding on your hand, for me anyway. Maybe it's just like the shape of my hands or the fact that I have short arms. I don't know. But I like a modified grip with the MMA gloves on. But she got it in there. She did her token spike in her mouthpiece at the end. It's become like her MO that she does after the fights. I thought she was pretty good on the microphone as well. And she called her shot. You know, she wants the champ. She feels like she's ready for it. I have it from good sources that she's been beaten up on UFC caliber athletes since she was in high school on the jiu-jitsu mats. So who knows? You know, maybe she is ready for Valentina. She's still going to have to clean up the striking a little bit more, but if you look at the progress she's made, even from the Molly McCann fight to now, if she makes that same amount of progress in, you know, let's say she fights Valentina in 4 months, if she makes that same amount of progress, she'll be closer to being able to hang on the feet. She's going to have to be able to get Valentina to the ground. And then, so good luck with that, first of all. And then, and then let's not forget, Valentina can grapple. You know, she's not going to just give up a submission like Andrade did last night. But hey, there's no other challenger really. So I say, why not? Hey, she's got my vote. Like, if you think you could take on the champ, you want to get in there with who, in my opinion, is the best pound for pound female on the planet, go for it. Do it. 23 years old. It's incredible to see the age of these fighters that are having such success now. Or maybe it's just me getting old. Co-main event, Zach Pauga against Jordan Wright. The story of this fight was just the clinch from Pauga. Pushed Jordan Wright up against the fence, and he had nothing. And even when he was out in open space, he was just hesitating. He was throwing a lot of single shots, big shots, trying to put Pauga away. And Pauga just stayed patient, closed the distance, bullied him up against the cage, used his clinch. And Jordan Wright just didn't know what to do. I mean, he didn't try and pummel out of there. He didn't try and circle off the fence or anything. And the referee, Mark Smith, did a great job, I think, in just letting it play out that way. Like, if you can't get your back off the fence, tough shit. That's the way I look at it. So Pauga, you know, not the most thrilling performance. He just kind of held him up against the fence for 15 minutes. But look, you got to do what you got to do. Jordan Wright is explosive out in open space. We've seen that. He also revealed in his pre-fight meeting, that his mother had just passed away a month ago. So I don't know if that was weighing on him or, you know, maybe it was just a great game plan by Zach Pauga, but yeah, I mean, that's what you got to do sometimes. You got to have a game plan, and it's not going to be the most exciting thing for people to watch, but you know, at the end of the day, there's not a ton of people, there's not a ton of eyes on this card. You come away with a win, and you know, hopefully have a more exciting game plan for the next time when you possibly have a few more eyes on you. Okay, so my producer and proxy, let's say, Mark Fellows, tells me that Valentina Shevchenko is fighting Alexa Grasso in 2 weeks at UFC 285. I had no idea. All right, so that's happening. I guess that's on the John Jones card. So there we go. The timing will still work out then for Erin Blanchfield to challenge the winner of that, just 2 weeks apart. So maybe we're looking at early summer for Blanchfield to get back in there. I think it's reasonable. I mean, a submission win over Jessica Andrade is deserving of a title shot, in my opinion. So let's do it. Jamal Pogues, unanimous decision win over Josh Parisian. This was the kind of fight where by the third round, it was two heavyweights that were exhausted and just kind of leaning on each other. And Parisian kind of finished on top there. Jamal Pogues, credit to him, broke his right hand at some point early in the fight and just kind of powered through it. Was still able to wrestle Josh Parisian down. And he said he had a hard time controlling him when they were on the ground because of his broken hand. But, you know, got the job done. So that's a tough dude. What could you say? Another broken limb. Marcin Prachnio looks like he broke his foot on William Knight, throwing all those leg kicks. I would not want to kick William Knight's legs. This dude, I mean, we throw around the phrase tree trunk legs. This dude has some oak tree trunk legs, like just thick, man. I got to go with my buddy Dan Tom's nickname of Thick Willie. Because of Dan, I will never not think Thick Willie whenever I hear William Knight on a fight card. So, yeah, great game plan by Prachnio. He was able to avoid the power of William Knight, stay on the outside, and I believe he broke the record for most leg kicks in a 3-round contest. It was like 67 or something. And all it cost him was his foot, which was clearly broken and hematomed and pretty gross looking at the end of this fight. But I'm sure there are some people out there who will purchase pictures of it on OnlyFans. So Marcin, if you want to make a few extra bucks, you know, OnlyFans seems to be sponsoring a lot of sports podcasts and athletes and things like that. Our friend Billy Quarantello has a channel on OnlyFans. I have not seen any of it yet because I don't have an OnlyFans account. But you know, if I could see my friend Billy Q on there with some exclusive content and possibly purchase some pictures of Marcin Prachnio's broken feet, you know, I'm a little more likely to sign up than if it's just pornography, which is what I thought. That's all it was. So that's why I was never interested. Like, why'd you pay money for pornography these days? A lot of existential questions going on the podcast today. All right. Alexander Hernandez, unanimous decision over Jim Miller. Bummer to see Jim Miller take a loss always. Hopefully he still guts it out and makes it onto the UFC 300 card so he could be the only fighter to fight on UFC 100, 200, and 300. I know that's like kind of his goal, but 41st UFC fight for Jim Miller, I believe, which is crazy. Just absolutely crazy, especially considering like a third of those fights he was taking while he had Lyme disease. So possibly one of the toughest human beings to ever get in the octagon, I'd say. Yeah. All right. This next fight ended in a gruesome TKO. Nazim Sadykhov and Evan Elder. So this fight, I have no clue how this one would have. I would be interested to see the judges' scorecard on this one because these two were so evenly matched. I don't know how it was scored. I mean, you could convince me it was 2-0 either way. You could convince me it was 1-1. I don't know. So we were 38 seconds into the third round. Sadykhov landed a head kick that seemed to bust open a cut that may have already been there on the eye of Evan Elder. It might have been opened up in the second round, and the head kick just kind of helped it along a little bit. So referee Mark Smith, again, doing a great job last night and got right in there and recognized it right away. Saw that the cut was like just right above the eyelid of Elder. And the doctor came in, didn't even have to get close to him, was like, no, you can't let this guy fight. I mean, there was blood running into his eyeballs. And Evan Elder was like, what the hell? I can fight with one eye. He was ready to go. Credit to him. Tough dude. But it goes TKO doctor stoppage to Nazim Sadykhov, who's a teammate of my buddy, the steamroller Matt Frivola, who I saw was in his corner, along with Aljamain Sterling, the bantamweight champion, and of course the legendary Ray Longo. Shout out to Ray Longo, who I guess I could also call a buddy of mine. I've been on his podcast, which is now defunct, the MMA and Beyond podcast. It is dearly missed by me. I still have the last episode they did. I never finished it, so it stayed in my iTunes queue, and that's where it will stay, unless they miraculously bring it back at some point. But not likely, folks. Not likely. But a big win for these guys. Knowing Matt Frivola and having had conversations with Ray Longo, I've heard a lot about Nas for the longest time. And I know he'd been trying to get into the UFC. I mean, look, if he's hanging in the gym with those guys, then you got to be ready. If he's getting in work with the steamroller and Ally Quinta and all the other great lightweights they have there, then he can definitely hang in the UFC. Unfortunate ending to the fight for both guys. I have no idea how that one would have been scored if it went to the judges' scorecards. I would like to see how they did score that, actually. Mayra Bueno Silva with a knee bar submission over Lina Lansberg. You don't see a whole lot of leg lock submissions with the ladies. I mean, we don't see a whole lot of leg locks in general in MMA. But I believe it was Mackenzie Dern who, and it was within the last 2 years, was the first female to win a fight via a leg lock, and was also a knee bar. So a little stat for you guys there, which I may have completely made up. Somebody's going to correct me once this goes out everywhere. Somebody's going to be like, Bill, don't you remember in like 2000, I don't know, I was just about to make up a date, and it was probably before women's MMA even existed. Philipe Lins with a knockout over Ovince St. Preux. And man, I gotta say, Ovince St. Preux, for a guy who has been such a killer in the past, he just looked like he didn't want to be in there. And I was looking at Dana White's Instagram earlier, and it showed the video of Ovince St. Preux warming up, and just looked like, even warming up, looked like he didn't want to warm up, which is a bad sign. A really bad sign when you're about to get in there with a killer like Philipe Lins, who I thought looked really good at light heavyweight. He went after Ovince very aggressively. He was overextending on pretty much every shot, but Ovince just couldn't get the timing, didn't have the speed to counter effectively, and just got knocked out. Mark Smith refereeing that one again. It looked like he was ready to stop it before Ovince even went down, and then once he hit the ground, it was done and over with. AJ Fletcher, guillotine win over Themba Gorimbo. This was an interesting fight. AJ Fletcher at the end had some words for people who, I guess, criticize fighters with shorter limbs and fighters who fight up a weight class, which I think a lot of people believe he's doing. A lot of people think he's probably a natural lightweight, but guys with shorter limbs, once they get those limbs around your neck, it's trouble. He has a really tight guillotine. I know he trains with Dustin Poirier, who also has a really great guillotine. So they're doing something right in that gym. He comes away with the guillotine victory there. Clayton Carpenter barely broke a sweat against Juancamilo Ronderos. Submitted him in the first round with a rear naked choke. Interesting grappling scramble in this one. If you're into grappling, go back and check this one out. Just exchanged a lot of different positions, and then once Clayton Carpenter locked up the body triangle, Ronderos was like elbowing the legs instead of trying to fight the hands for the choke, which was, pretty much a sign that they're done. Like, you got to fight the hands. It's the only way to get out of the choke. Nobody's going to just let go of a body lock because you elbow them in the thigh. But hey, people do weird things in there. Let's see. Rick Allen says something insulting, probably. Let's look. What are you going for with that beard, bro? Got a side job as a department store Santa Claus? Well, maybe next winter. Probably be all gray by then. Actually, I'm reaching that point in the year where the beard's going to go because it's just getting too hot here. So this beard will only last, I would say, maybe another 2-3 weeks. And then at that point, it's got to go. It's just too damn hot. He says, Bill Santa Claus Welker. All right. I'll take it. He also says, this card was almost as irrelevant as Dumont versus Ladd. Man. All right. That's an interesting comparison there. I actually forgot about that card, so I don't know how soon I'll forget about this one. Let's take a look to next week. I actually haven't even looked at this card yet, but back at the UFC Apex, this is UFC Vegas 70. So main event, Nikita Krylov against Ryan Spann. And I feel like both of these guys, I thought they were both coming off of losses, but no, Krylov coming off a win over Volkan Ozdemir. Oh, and the knockout of Alexander Gustafsson. That's right. And let's see, Ryan Spann. Okay, also 2 wins in a row. Knocked out Dominic Reyes, that's right, and submitted Ion Cutelaba. And his last loss was against Anthony Smith. All right, so this is a fun main event. Both guys can strike. Out of the two, I think Krylov would be most likely to try and take it to the ground at some point. Although, Ryan Spann does have a fairly recent submission as well. All right, fun main event here. Not sure what the stakes are going to be. but we'll see. Oh, shout out to my man Mike Heckard on here. He says the co-main event was fire. Indeed. Okay, so next week, the co-main event, middleweights, Andrade Muniz against Brendan Allen. Very underrated fight here. These are two really tough guys. Let's see what they've both had going on recently. So Brendan Allen, 3 wins in a row. Sam Alvey, Jacob Malkoun, and Krzysztof Jotko. Submitted Jotko back in October. And his only loss recently was to Chris Curtis, who is just a stud in that middleweight division. And Andrade Muniz, who is just a beast on the ground. I mean, his submission of Jacare, he almost ripped his damn arm off. Then submitted Eric Anders right after that, and then beat up Uriah Hall, who, for a non-grappler, Uriah Hall has to be one of the hardest guys to submit. Actually, really, I think I'm more excited for this co-main event than the main event. Then we got Augusto Sakai and Dontel Mays, the heavyweights, going to go at it. Tatiana Suarez, I'm excited to see her back in there. It's been a while since she's fought, I believe. Let's see if we can pull this up. Yeah, 2019, June of 2019. Wow, it's been a really long time since she's fought. I would like to know what's going on there. She's going to go in there with Montana De La Rosa. So we're coming up on 4 years since Tatiana Suarez has fought. I wonder what the deal is there. If anybody knows, please enlighten me. Let's see. Mike Malott and Johan Linnes. Jasmine Jazudavicius and Gabriela Fernandez Hermogenes. Jordan Levitt getting back in there against Victor Martinez. That should be a good fight. Ode Osborne and Charles Johnson. Nice. Joe Solecki fighting on here. Okay, we got a few undefeated fighters. Lightweights, Rafael Alves and Narulo Aliev. This looks like a fun little card. This co-main event, I'm really curious about. Muniz and Allen. That's the one I'm looking forward to the most there. So I guess that'll be my sleeper pick for you guys. But I'm really curious about what's going on with Tatiana Suarez. So if anybody knows, anybody's got some inside info on that, please let me know. And I don't think there's a whole lot else going on. It was kind of a slow week for news. Can't think of anything off the top of my head that really came up in the last week. A lot of talk has been surrounding, Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler coaching the next season of Tough. And then a lot of people have been talking about the John Jones fight coming up with Cyril Gahn. Oh, okay. I know what I can talk to you guys about. So after the fight with Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski, the pound-for-pound rankings came out, and Volkanovski was still at number 1 despite losing a direct contest with Islam Makhachev. So mixed schools of thought on this. Some people think, well, because he was the smaller guy and he moved up and he had a more competitive fight with Makhachev than people who are actually in that weight class, that he still deserves to be number 1 pound for pound. Whereas other people say they both made the same weight class. Makhachev won the fight, so Makhachev should be the number one pound for pound fighter now. Let me know where you guys stand on this. Mark Fellows, I know where you stand on this, but feel free to chime in with an opinion anyway. Here's my thing. Like, yeah, they both met and agreed upon weight, and Makhachev won. But it's hard because just given the strength of schedule of Islam Makhachev, I don't feel like he's the best pound for pound fighter in the world. For me, if we're talking about skills here, for me, it's still Kamaru Usman. You know, I don't understand this whole mentality of like everybody was talking about Usman's the number one pound for pound, and then he loses one fight, which he was dominating 4 out of the 5 rounds, and then he gets caught with a head kick. So I don't know. I don't hold that against him. And you can't tell me Volkanovski is the number one pound for pound fighter after just losing, but Usman loses the fight and then he's no longer the best pound for pound fighter. So a lot of this makes no sense. And I'm going to spoil this for a lot of you. The point of the rankings is to get us to argue about the rankings and keep talking about the MMA matchups to come. Also, I believe it was intentional to put Volkanovski ahead of Islam so the UFC could test the waters for a rematch and see, first of all, see if they could get Islam to take the bait and come out and say, well, I'll beat him again if you're not going to put me a number one pound for pound. But he didn't take that bait. He kind of said, well, I knew that they would do this, or they don't give any respect to Russian fighters and Dagestani fighters. You know, look what they did to Peter Yan. They screwed him over with the decision, which, you know, that's the commission. That's not the UFC. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. If you're not listening live, which is 99% of you, you know, send me a message. Who do you think is the number one pound for pound fighter in the world right now? And here's the thing, like the thing with Volkanovski moving up is when the rankings came out, he was not ranked at lightweight. So was it understood that he was not really a lightweight going into this fight? But if he wins and he becomes a champion, he has to be ranked at lightweight. So why is he not ranked at lightweight after a loss? Can anyone explain this to me? There's just like, this is the problem with these rankings, is there's just so many, it's just so flawed, you know, and none of it makes any sense. And that's because it all exists to make us argue about what the next fights should be. You know, do you guys want to see a rematch between Volkanovski and Makhachev? It seems like Makhachev doesn't want it. And Volkanovski was like, well, I guess it's going to be Yair and I. But then after he had a chance to go back and watch the fight, he was like, no, I won that fight. I want the rematch. So I don't know. Do you guys think if a champion wants to move up and challenge for the title in the weight class above, do you think they should have to forfeit their title like John Jones did? And I'm just asking a question. I'm not saying that's the way it should be. I was one of the first people to criticize John Jones for doing that, because he gave up his title before he had a fight booked and then tried to negotiate. When he gave up the only leverage he had for negotiating, which was his lightweight title. He gave it up first. The negotiation process has to be different, but I think if you're going to move up and challenge the champion in a weight class above, you should have to go all in. Give up your title. You're now in that weight class above. And then if you want to go back, you can go back and probably challenge for the title. But because otherwise it's just weird. Like, it was weird when Adesanya did it. He moves up and then he loses, and then he comes back and he's still the champion. It's a strange thing. So I'm kind of leaning towards, like, if you're gonna move up and challenge for the title in the weight class above, maybe you should have to give up that title. I don't know. Am I way off base here? And then if you decide to go back, then you go all in back into that other weight class. A lot of people had problems with this back in the day when Chael Sonnen was fighting in 2 weight classes and he was ranked in both. People were like, well, he should have to pick one. I think if you're just a contender, it doesn't matter. You could bounce back and forth. But if you're a champion. And I remember Anderson Silva used to fight up to 205 in non-title fights. You guys remember this? He moved up and fought, I believe, James Irving. He moved up and fought Forrest Griffin, and he was still the champ at 185. And he just took those fights. That was weird. He didn't want to fight at 205 because Machida was the champ, and that was his buddy. I don't know. I'm just talking here, guys. Sober and talking. I know you're not used to it, so this podcast is like bowling for me. I'm better at it when I'm drinking. All right. Either way, if you guys want to get some over the top, under the influence merchandise, you could do so through our friends at Team Reaper. Reaper1.co is the website. I'll put all the links in the episode description. As always, you can use the promo code MMA Rocks 10, save yourself 10%, whether you purchase my merchandise or not. I don't know where Jeff the Animal Wilson was this weekend. I didn't hear from him during the fights last night, and he didn't answer my texts today. So I don't know. If you want to get a hold of him, you can't. He's an international man of mystery. You could send me a message and I could pass it along to him. I would be happy to do so. But, maybe we could get him to make a cameo again next week. Mark Fellows says I'm a better listener when I'm drinking too. Yeah, I think that this show is best paired with alcohol. I think consuming this show sober is like the opposite of taking prescription drugs. Like, prescription drugs and alcohol do not mix. But MMA on the rocks and alcohol, perfect combination. In any case, that's all I got for you guys this week. I guess no drunken ramblings at the end of this show. I'm just buzzing from this protein shake here. So anyway, I'm going to go find something to do with the rest of my Sunday, and hope everybody has a nice day off. If you have the day off for President's Day. Until next time, cheers, everybody. Goodbye.